Shemai Pretty and welcome back to my channel. My name's Caitlin Anwyn for anyone who's new here, and let's get back into building in Planet Zoo. And we're continuing in the North America Zoo today, and we're still in autumn for now, but it won't be long until we start winter. But for now we are doing a black-tailed prairie dog habitat, and I wasn't really sure what to do for the prairie dogs. They usually live in grasslands areas, so there's like not a lot going on with their natural habitat, so I wanted to do something silly again. Wacky, doesn't really make sense for a zoo. That is my type of habitat. And you probably know from the title and thumbnail as well. I thought I would play on the name of the animal because they are called prairie dogs, even though I think they're technically part of the squirrel family. Because they're called prairie dogs, I thought I would do a Prairie Dog Park, but I thought it would be fun to do something like a dog park, dog agility sort of habitat, and I'm gonna try my best to have some of the decorations, dog agility equipment actually interactable with the prairie dog. So I wanted to make at least a couple that the prairie dog could actually use and actually play on, because last week's habitat kind of was all just decoration. If you haven't seen that one, I did a cougar habitat, and the cougar habitat was themed around Life is Strange True Colors. And because this habitat was at such a steep angle going up the hill on this mountainous map, I just put a lot of flooring, roofing in the habitat so I could have a flat area to build on to start with. And once I've finished building all of the dog park agility apparatus, I will delete the floor then and then put everything on the habitat properly. So the first piece of this dog park I'm making is this little curved bridge. Unfortunately, to start with, I actually selected just flexicolor, not climbable. Even though these aren't climbing animals, they can still climb on things that are technically climbable. They just can't climb as well as like the chimpanzees and things like that. But my first object wasn't climbable, so it was giving quite a large hitbox around it. So the prairie dogs couldn't actually climb on that because it wasn't selected as climbable. But I think the biggest struggle with building something like this is how tiny these prairie dogs are. They're really small, and most building objects in Planet Zoo are not small. And this is like the weaving sticks. I think that's what they're called. Seen it on like things like crafts. With the dogs will go in between everything, in between the sticks. And I don't think the prairie dogs can actually do that. I'm not sure. I checked everything as I was building along and as I placed things down, but it's kind of hard to keep track of everything. But trying to make things really small, I got very creative with the different objects I was playing around with. These are full stops, I think, from the lettering, and I wanted to make like a tunnel, like those curved tunnels that you see on the agility courses. I wanted to make the round circle object that I was going to create the tunnel with actually hollow, so guests and we can see inside the tunnel too. Because these are letter objects merged together though, it's definitely not a thing that the prairie dogs can go through, unfortunately. I only wanted half a circle, so I split those groups that I'd made so they would be half and half, because the group of circles were opposite each other, so I needed to split all of the ones up from the one side so I could then duplicate that over to create a half circle. I guess I could have just deleted it, but I didn't see the point in wasting my time creating the whole circle and then deleting half of it. So I just make a half circle, split it, and then move it over to create the half moon shaped tunnel. And I didn't want the tube to, or tunnel to be too plain, so I thought I'd go for a stripy design. I actually counted how many circles created the tunnel to then know how many I could split it up into, and it was divisible by 3, I think. I can't remember how many there were in total. There's a lot of objects in this. And I'm using the Planet Zoo switches for an even thinner circle. And this one isn't as smooth as the circle for the tunnel, but it is thinner and smaller, so it works for what I wanted it to. And that is to make some ring jumps. The prairie dogs aren't going to be able to jump through these hoops. It is just one of the decorations I was going with. And they look kind of like lollipops. And I thought a little trio of 3, there were 3 different heights, looked really nice together. And then I learnt my lesson with finding objects that weren't technically climbable. So I just searched for climbable wood objects that are definitely base game. I have tried to make this base game only as well. So I'm making another little bridge that hopefully the prairie dogs can climb over. I did discover that once I moved everything around and put it on the ground, that I had even more problems with getting things to actually be usable with the prairie dogs. They were using them on this flat flooring, but then once I'd put it on the terrain in the habitat, they weren't really able to climb on it again. But that's a problem for later on. And I'm playing my hair a lot in this video, and that is because I've blow dried it straight for the first time in I don't even know how long, maybe the first time this year. My hair is naturally curly. It is a fight to get it to get straight, and it's not even fully straight. It's lucky my hair is so long because the ends are just fully curly. I could not get them to go straight. My fringe has started waving already. So yeah, I'm gonna be playing with my hair throughout this whole thing and like looking over and being like, oh, that had me. And my next little bridge I wanted to make was kind of like a staircase style bridge. I was really hoping this one would be the one that the prairie dogs could definitely climb up. So it's 1 meter across, so it's definitely wide enough for the prairie dogs. And it is tagged with climbable, so it should be climbable too. I think I've just found from doing so many of these habitat speed builds that I just don't like doing regular natural habitats for animals. I even tried to like figure out what prairie was to go with like the black-tailed prairie dog. Prairie is best described as a grassland. That is like their habitat. So I tried really hard to try and find something that these prairie dogs would actually live in, and there's nothing really sparking my interest. Not really much to do other than rocks and grass pieces, which I will add in as more decoration than anything. But it was just, I don't know. I like doing interesting, wacky builds. Like making a dog park for some squirrel animals. And speaking of dog parks, I'm doing the next set of apparatus. And I was having a look at some actual dog parks to get some sort of inspiration. I sort of do remember quite a lot of the agility things. I was kind of obsessed with dogs when I was a kid. I had like these magazines, and the magazines came with were all about dog breeds, and each magazine would be a different dog, and you would get a little toy of the dog, and it was like that style with the dogs with the really big noses. And I kind of just really enjoyed like learning all about these different breeds. But I used to love all the dog things, so most of this I remember from watching too many dog themed programs, watching like Crafts, even Nintendogs. Oh my god, I love Nintendogs, and the little agility course you could go on the Nintendo on that. And I'm just doing some little jumps, and the jumps I kind of was inspired by like the horse jumps, and they usually have like some sort of decoration on the edges of them. So I used the sign for the prairie dogs as the little edges of the jumps. I thought that was really cute, and I wanted to make like a mini little house for them. I'd seen it on one of my reference images, like little tables where I think on things like crafts is like the place where the dog will sit and stop for 2 seconds. So I was kind of disappointed that this didn't really count as a hard shelter, but I thought it was really cute. Kind of like those dog houses that you see on cartoons like Tom and Jerry. But with like an open front, so the guests can see the prairie dogs jumping on them. And again, it's just something that I'd seen on a reference photo. It's like these little arches that the dogs can go through. Well, now I'm trying to get the prairie dogs to go through them. Because I'd already used a ridiculous amount of objects, I thought maybe I could try using an upside down U as the arch. And it actually worked. I had to use a larger one than I thought I would have to use. I thought that smaller one in the background would work because the prairie dogs are tiny, but their hitboxes and stuff are still really large, so it's a shame that I'd have to do something so large, but it still looks effective. And because they were quite plain, I thought I would add a pattern to them. And so I used these full stops in the smallest letters and made them like polka dots. I didn't think the incline would be that bad, but I did end up having to try and flatten some of these bridges and flatten the terrain underneath the bridges to make sure that the prairie dogs could actually use them, because at the angles that I placed them to start with, they would not interact with them, which was really frustrating. And a reason why I don't do a lot of habitats for arboreal climbing animals like monkeys and stuff, because trying to work out how they interact with these objects and climb over things is just so confusing. And to keep this base game, I'm actually using these Planet Zoo corrugated metal panels, and these look like thinner, smaller versions of the metal panels from the Australia pack. So this building fits in really nicely with the staff buildings and like the entrance building. And the entrance building's in between this habitat and the cougar habitat, so it's quite nice to have a building that fits in with the rest of the zoo instead of having something that just fits into the habitat. Because I kind of wanted like a tin shack shed sort of thing, and I thought this would be like the building where you would pay to get into the dog park. And I also thought this would be like a good place to have like a dog wash area too, so your dogs can get muddy playing around in the park, or the prairie dogs shall we say, get muddy playing in the park, doing all the different agilities, and then instead of getting all mud in the owner's car, going there and washing mucky balls off. I would absolutely love to have a dog park like this and take my dogs to something like this, especially my spaniel. I think my spaniel would absolutely love playing around in something like this. The Shih Tzu might get bored. And I wanted to like split up the word prairie dog, so that's why I've like lined it up like that. So we've got the prairie for the black-tailed prairie dogs, but then the dog park being separate, so you can get the play on words. From like researching prairie dogs, they dig underground in U-shaped tunnels. So I am making like a U-shaped tunnel but horizontally instead of vertically. So usually their underground living area would be like a proper U, but I'm doing it more horizontally instead of vertically. So it is sort of inspired by the natural burrows that prairie dogs do live in the wild, in the prairie grassland environments. And usually the prairie dogs will have open areas connected to that U shape for their bed and their toilet area. So I just put like a little chamber along the U for the little bed area then. I've been really enjoying using these wooden signs that I used for the moose habitat and just changing them around to reflect what animal is in the habitat that it's near. So I got the little prairie dog sign up again. So this one kind of looks like a different sign because on the jumps you can only see the shoulders to head, but on the main sign you can see the whole body, so they look kind of different as well. But because this is built so much on a hill, it's pretty much impossible to put any bins, benches and donation bins. So like regular rubbish bins and donation bins, it's like almost impossible to place any of those. And it's another reason why maybe I shouldn't have built something on this area, but I wanted to fill it in a little bit. It was too empty around this corner and I wanted something to entice the guests up into the Halloween bonfire night section right at the top of the map. Oh, and I did end up putting some tufts of grass in some of the gaps in between the agility objects for like the dog park. I thought I would put a little hint to the prairie part of the dog park. Ooh, tongue twister. So I put like little tufts of grass here, there and everywhere to make it more of a prairie dog park, because as we said in the start, a prairie is kind of a grassland and typically in North America, so this totally makes sense for my North American Zoo. Let me know in the comments whether you are a dog person or a cat person, or you're not a pet person at all, and if you have any suggestions for any other habitat animals from North America, give me some suggestions if you have any ideas for habitats. And we're going to be going into winter very soon as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be from the North America park either. It could be from the Arctic park, because I've never really done a specific Arctic animal habitat build. But yeah, I'm going to leave it off there. If you enjoyed the video, smash that like button, and if you haven't already and you would like to, it would mean a lot to me if you could subscribe and hit the bell to be notified whenever I upload a new video. I upload on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Wednesdays for Life is Strange, True Colors, DLC, Wavelengths for now, but we will be going back to Planet Zoo once I've finished that, and Planet Zoo on Saturdays. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!